This summer, on the occasion of our 20th reunion for the class of Speedway 1972, we had a chance to visit with old friends, renew acquaintances, even get to know people we never really knew. It was a time to remember the way we were in 1972 and find out what we've been up to since then. Speaking of memories, how many times have we walked down these hallways, with each step wondering how we did on a test, or what was going through the mind of our boyfriend or girlfriend, or maybe we were anxiously awaiting what a teacher was going to do to us for some mischief that we'd gotten into. Or perhaps we were nervously awaiting our performance in a school musical, or any of 1,000 other things. Perhaps we were headed toward the gym for a basketball game, or perhaps for practice. We all have our own memories, some good, some bad, but as we reminisce, Speedway has a special place in our memories. Many of us were surprised at all the things that we could remember. After all, it's been 20 years and a lot of things have taken place. One classmate said that it didn't seem like she was the same person whose picture was in the yearbook, but somebody else. The reunion gave us a chance to see that while we've all changed, we do have a common bond. That bond is the time we spent together in our teenage years, when everything seems to affect us more deeply, when our emotions and certain urges are more difficult to control. It's fun to remember those times and to think of what was and what might have been. We came to the reunion for many reasons. One classmate admitted that he really hated school. He came to the reunion to see the people, to see how his classmates were doing 20 years later. Many expressed fears that they wouldn't know anyone anymore. But it didn't take long Friday night or Saturday or whenever the first time it was that we got together with classmates for those fears to be erased as we realized that we hadn't changed all that much. This video is a combination of memories of our high school days with an update with teachers and classmates today. We also re-experienced the fun we had at the reunion weekend and listened to some music from our time. Speaking of music from our time, those of us who got out our yearbooks to bone up on classmates for the reunion will remember that the front cover has "Let It Be" on it. "Let It Be" was an old Beatles song that sang about how we handle the challenges in life. So as we take a walk down memory lane, let's listen to "Let It Be." We're not the only ones with memories of Speedway High School during the late 60s and early 70s. Our teachers were part of that experience. As we wax nostalgic and think of our high school years, stories about teachers abound. Well, the opposite is also true. Our teachers have memories of us in our classes and those classes that came before us and followed us. So we stopped by the high school and found that several of the teachers are still there. We talked to them and also visited with some teachers who have since retired. And here's what they had to say.
Since your class graduated, I taught a couple more years, and then I went into administration here. And from 1976 to 1987, I was assistant superintendent. And then 5 years ago, I went back into the classroom, and that's where I am today. So I'm doing about the same thing today as I was doing in 1972. I'm teaching again and doing a little bit of coaching. Came here in 1964.
Well, teaching school, of course. I was listening in when you were interviewing Bruce, and I was thinking about this, and I think one of the things that's brought some reward in my life is I've been active in the National Science Teachers Association, and starting in the 80s, and for the last 10 years I've been rather active in that group. But some other things I was reminiscing about, thinking about, was I believe it was in 1970 that we started advanced biology here. And so the class of 72 would have been sophomores about that time. So I think some of those individuals were the first ones in that class, and I'm still teaching advanced biology. It's changing, evolving as in the last 20 years, but it's still a very enjoyable class to teach, and I really enjoy doing it. I came in 56, so this would be my 36th year here.
Well, I came to Speedway in 1964 as a temporary German teacher, and continued on and have taught English and German over the past years. Right now I have 4 years of German that I'm teaching and Honor English 910.
Well, let's see, I started in Speedway in 1956, and I was at Allison School a year at Open, and I worked with Mr. McClellan, and in 59 I went to the Wheeler School as principal. And Jerry, that's when I met you and some of the other members of your class. And in 1964, I then went to the junior high school, and I think there again, you were at the junior high school where your class was. And I stayed there, I think it was 14 years. And in 78, I came to the high school, and that was the year of the bombing. And I got indoctrinated rather hurriedly. That probably was the most traumatic time of my career, and most testing, and probably determined it was difficult.
Well, I'm still here, and I plan on being here for about 2 more years, Jerry, and then I'm going to retire and probably find a job to keep me out of trouble, play a little golf, maybe travel a little bit. That's about it. I'm currently athletic director, not coaching anything anymore, as I was doing when you guys were in school and everything. Speedway has undergone a transition in athletics, as you probably are aware of. Of course, you live in Plainfield, so you're a Quaker now, but we don't have as many kids, and we just don't seem to have enough kids to really go around the sports that we have. And we've suffered through some trying years, but it looks a little bit better now. We've redone our schedule, downgraded it, so to speak, and we don't play the Warrens and the Lawrences and the Southports and the Prairie Meridians that we played back when you guys were in school. But it's the Monrovias and Western Boones and Tri-West, people like that. So I think we'll do a little bit better.
We also visited with Coach Ralph Johnson. Although he's experienced some setbacks with his health, he was glad to see us and sent us his best wishes for our 20th reunion.
The last 14 years I have a remodeling business, and I inspect houses for people who want to buy them. I retired from teaching in 1979. I enjoy what I'm doing now a lot more than some of the things in teaching from the standpoint of the politics more than anything. Speedway was a very nice school. I enjoyed working with the kids, had a lot of good memories.
The last 20 years, now that'll put a little stress on an old man who forgets what he did at mid-afternoon today. But I, of course, was at Speedway as coach until 1983, and We won some games and we lost some games. The year after you people graduated, we did go to the semi-state in basketball, and from that point on, like I said, we did win some more games. We lost some, and in 1983, I retired from basketball, and Tom Smith became coach, and I was assistant principal then until 1989, and Mrs. Pollard and I both retired that summer after school was out, and we've been doing some traveling. We had already done some traveling before that. The year after I retired from basketball, some of the alumni nice enough to honor Mrs. Pollard and myself, and they sent us on a trip to Hawaii in 1984.
I was there exactly 25 years, and I retired in 78. So I guess the spring of 78. So I suppose it would have been 53, I think was the year I started. I started in middle school, and I was teaching typing and bookkeeping and English, and Mr. Fulton taught the shorthand, but I taught the typing and bookkeeping. I went back after I retired. I felt, so I taught my entire life, never missed a year, and I felt useless. I felt, what am I any good for now? You know, how could, you're always doing something for somebody else, and I felt kind of useless. So after I was out a year, I went back and substituted, and that did it. I didn't want it. You don't have the clout, you don't have the authority, you know, and the kids were good because they remembered me. I hadn't been out that long, but I wasn't the teacher.
Well, I retired in 78 and decided there wasn't enough room for me in Speedway, so I came out to the farm and built a house out here in a bean field. Been here now 14 years. And to keep me busy, have a big yard and a big garden. There was no trees here when we came, and now we have, I mow around, at one time, about 200. But I have the equipment to do it, and I have the equipment to till the garden. So most I have to do is ride. And I have a tiller that you can start it off on one side and go to the other side and meet it. And so it doesn't take too much energy. In the winter time, we spend about 6 months, all the winter time in Florida, Winter Haven.
What would you think are the comparisons of teaching today versus 20 years ago?
Well, I do think that in the early 70s, when I first came here, that there was a much more eager bunch of students in terms of wanting to learn, and there was a lot more excitement because the students would ask questions and challenge you and give you feedback, whereas today it's sort of a one-way street. I feel like I'm making all the effort and there's nothing coming back from the students, and I think it's something that you people, as you assume more responsibility, are going to want to try and reverse to get back to where we were in the 60s and the early 70s.
Okay. Any memorable individuals or events from that time period you can think of?
Well, I was just going through the yearbook and certainly was bringing back memories. I recognized Kent Evans there, and I see Kent frequently. He's a science teacher down in the south side of Indianapolis, and at the state science teachers meeting I seems like about every year I see Kent, and saw a lot of familiar faces brought back.
Well, Bob Hawkins was a good student, and I thought he was headed for pretty big things, but I never heard anything about him, whatever direction he went, because he was probably my best physics student. Well, no question about it, he was.
There was recently a popular movie out called What About Bob? Well, that could be about our class also. Mr. Wright wasn't the only one wondering what happened to Bob Hawkins. Several other classmates wondered also what Bob has been up to the last 20 years.
Yeah, he was the one. Bob, I've told him funny stories about Bob Hawkins. Yeah, he wears pajamas under his clothes, and you can see him sticking out.
Bob Hawkins, he's the genius, absolute genius.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, I'm always interested in whatever happened to Bob Hawkins, and I got to see the write-up, so I'm curious to get to catch up with him and see what's going on.
Yeah, I'm always interested in whatever happened to Bob Hawkins. I hear from every time we have a reunion, I see him, but that's about the only time, I guess.
Hello, Mr. Wright. Family Class of 72. I'm Bob Hawkins. I live in Dallas, Texas with my wife, Bianchi, where I have a small electronics distribution and sales company.
You mentioned them and just...
I'm curious where Linda Ward may be. And Sullivan. Mm-hmm.
What do you remember about?
I remember Mark is a very brilliant student. I think I talked to him when he was came down to the guidance department. I was in guidance at one time. Linda I remember as a very strong student. And I'm curious about those two in particular.
Hi, I'm Linda Ward Gruber, and I'm sitting here with my biggest accomplishment over the last 20 years. This is Ruth, who's almost 13, and Emily, who's 8, and Angela, who is 10. They're what I'm most proud of that I've accomplished in the last 20 years. Just after we got out of high school, I went to Indiana University and got my degree in medical technology, and then I worked at Indiana University for about 3 years. After that, my husband and I moved to Chicago and lived there for a while, and then we moved down to Baton Rouge, Louisiana. We really enjoyed it down there because the culture is so much different than it is in the rest of the United States. And after Baton Rouge, we moved here to Memphis, Tennessee, and in the last couple of years, I went back to school and I got my degree and just took my boards to get my RN in nursing. In fact, I should be finding out the results of the boards about the time we come up for the reunion. I hope that I have good news instead of bad. Right now I'm working at the Regional Medical Center in Memphis in the newborn ICU unit, where we treat babies anywhere from 1 pound on up to normal-sized babies that need intensive care. I'm really enjoying my job, and I'm really happy with what I've accomplished in the last 20 years and where I'm at. And I'm glad I'm going to be able to come up and visit with everybody at the reunion.
Number one is Larry Hoffmacher, and I remember Larry's career in basketball. You might have, I think you were playing at the time, and something happened that somebody flunked off or something, and Larry was a manager. And I said, Larry, you're no longer a manager, you're the point guard. And Larry came on and did a real nice job for us. And I haven't talked to him lately, but I always had a lot of good feelings about old Larry Hoffmacher because he was willing to do that. One other face that I saw in there that I remember real well, and he'll have to tell you the whole story, but I'll tell you a little bit about Kyle Ostless. Kyle Ostless caused the entire gym class to have to swim for almost a week because of something that he did in gym class. Now, this was dodgeball era. You understand, everybody liked to play dodgeball. And I remember in particular, your class, Mick Green and Kyle and quite a few others, used to get poor old Denny DeLong, who was probably, what, a sophomore or junior before you. They used to beat that poor kid to death. And I'd say, Denny, I said, you want me to step in and help? He said, no. He says, I can take it, so just leave it alone. But I remember Kyle, one time when I was absent, he had a substitute teacher or something, performed an act that I don't think he's very proud of now, and if he's not, he'll have to tell you about it, and I'm not going to, but I'll never forget Kyle, and I've told that story several times. It's very humorous now, and I'm sure it will be to him, too.
We asked Kyle to respond to Mr. Crumley's story, but as you can see, he wasn't interested.
I have a lot of stories I could tell. I'll even tell one about Jerry Land, who was probably one of the premier half-milers in school. And we went to a select meet for the kids from the county and the city. And when we got there, Jerry had brought 2 right shoes to run in. And he had to borrow a pair from a boy who ran the 440, and this kid won, and Jerry borrowed them from him, and he also won. So Jerry came out real well, and I've often thought about that at times. Those are some of the funny things.
What Don has asked me to say is probably, as far as my working career is concerned, was the highlight of my whole career. Is in November of this past year, November 29th, at the first home ball game, the I guess the school board voted to name the high school gymnasium after me, and it was an extremely high honor, and I was very, I just feel very fortunate to think that this would and could be done, and like I said that night, I just hope I can, that I'm worth the honor, that's all I can say.
Class of 72, I think that's a class that was so good to me when my husband was ill. I think your class, because I remember getting a card from Susan Burke and Pam Anderson, and I think several of them signed their name to it. And they were, I especially remember how I felt like that the young kids were more, the young ones were more sympathetic and more open and outgoing about expressing their sympathy than I found that adults were.
I enjoyed every bit of it. It was a nice experience, excellent community. And when I was asked to be principal, I turned it down 3 times. And still, Mr. Jordan kept twisting my arm. And I said, well, I wouldn't consider this for any place else except Speedway. So I yielded and became principal. I became principal the year your class was a freshman, so you're the first freshman that I had.
Well, I hope you all have a great time and have a lot of nice reminiscence. As you well know, that what is today, April the 26th, I think, and we're going to graduate our current class on June 4th. And I keep reminding students that their days together are numbered, and I know when you go through it, you don't think too much about it, but after you graduate, you reminisce, and it's always very nice to get back with your old classmates, and to be honest, I think it brings some tears to your eyes, and it's hard for people currently going through it to realize that their days are numbered, and they'll have some fond memories of their careers in high school and so forth. So.
Well, keep your hair combed if you still got it. Watch your waistline. Count your money wisely. Come back and see us once in a while, and I wish you all the greatest luck in the world. And when I start seeing your grandkids come through, it'll be time for me to hang it up.
I hope that you people are all as happy in your lives as I am in mine. I hope that you enjoy good health as my family and I do, and I hope you have a good weekend, a fun weekend, and if you have half as much fun at your reunion as I had at mine, you'll have a great time.
What most of us remember about high school is the kids we go to school with, particularly those who were in our class. Of course, those kids are now 38 years old, but to many of us, our classmates are frozen in time, still 18 years old. That's what makes reunions so interesting, matching up the current face and body with our memories. Seeing how people turned out. Some of us were surprises. We never expected this person or that to turn out like they did. To help us catch up, we ask our classmates what they've been up to the last 20 years.
I'm Kathy Harris, Perry, and since I graduated from high school, I got married and had 3 children. They're sitting around me here. This is Rachel, and by the reunion, she'll be 19. And this is my son, Eddie, and he's 17. And this is my daughter, Cheryl, and she's 15. After I had them, I went to work for the City of Indianapolis Department of Metropolitan Development for about 10 years. And while I was doing that, I went back to college, went to IU, and got my bachelor's degree in business administration, and worked for, after the city, I worked for Blue Cross Blue Shield for 4 years, and I'm currently a supervisor for EDS, Electronic Data Systems, up on the north side of town.
I'm Fred Kurtz, and after graduating from high school, I started right into college at IU PUI, got a BS in MET, Mechanical Engineering Technology, and then I started work at Web Division up in Lebanon for a couple of years, and then went to Link Belt Bearing, where I've been the last 14 years. And during the career there, I started an MBA at University of Indianapolis, finished there in 1985, I think it was. Progressed through the ranks at Link Belt, where I'm now manager of manufacturing engineering. In 1974, 2 years after graduating from high school, I got married to a girl from Greensburg, and then in 1978 I had twin boys, which I had about an hour's worth of notice, so we had to scurry around and buy another set of everything. I've been fortunate enough for the last, during the last few years at work to go over to Europe twice, which I never figured that would happen, and that was a big thrill. And for the last 7 years, I've been working as a volunteer at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on the USAC Observer crew, which is quite exciting. The second year I was doing it, I was stationed at the entrance to the pits, and my wife hasn't been back there since 1973 when they had all the bad accidents. And I talked her into going, and I think it was lap 4, Kevin Cogan went sailing right over our heads, right in front of her, watching him fly over our heads, so that was quite thrilling. Like I said, I've been doing that for 7 years and quite much enjoying it. Just moved to Mooresville about a year and a half ago and really like it down there. Built a new house down there. Still stayed in Indianapolis my entire life and probably will.
Okay. Last 20 years I've been trying to find a job that pays big money and haven't had any luck with that yet. I graduated from Purdue in forestry, and there's no money in trees, and they take a long time to grow. You know, you don't get to see the fruits of your work. So I got into the medical equipment business and have been manufacturing medical equipment since that time. 2 years ago I started a company, and that's going along very well now. We're still a startup company, but we manufacture medical equipment and sell medical equipment around the world. That's about it.
Well, I'm still married to Vicki. We have 2 kids. We have a son, Chris, who's 16 years old, and we have a daughter, Jody, who is 14 years old. And we live out in Brownsburg, Indiana, and I still work at Union Carbide. I've got almost 20 years. It'll be 20 years in March. And other than raising kids and working, Vic and I recently bought a business. We run a decorating den, interior decorating business. Have a dog named Bonzo. And other than a few vacations in between, we've just been working, eating, and sleeping.
I think the needs of a family with insurance are great in this day and age. And I'm here to tell you that when the Joneses needed help, I was there. And State Farm was there, too. This is me some 20 years ago, and I haven't really developed much after Attica. That was a short stay, and I went on to a career in broadcasting. Very much the same type of talent needed for both careers. This is my family: Jennifer Harbin, Stacy Harbin, and Mark Harbin. Kids are 6 and 4, and pretty much resemble the Simpson family. That's right. I work at Channel 6 as the national sales manager for the station here in town. After working at 15 or 16 jobs in radio and TV, looks like I've found someplace that hasn't kicked me out yet. So that's a lot of fun.
Tell me about working with Chuck Marlowe.
Working with Chuck Marlowe is a lot of fun. After his famous career in wrestling, Chicken Chuck Marlowe moved on to be Bobby Knight's chauffeur and shoe polisher. And Chuck was a lot of fun. He was always never at a loss for words, especially when it came to Coach Knight. And sucking up became a profession.
In high school, I was Mary Ellen Click. After I graduated from high school, went to college, got an applied associate science degree in physical therapy and pre-med. I started working at the Central Indiana Regional Blood Center. Then about 4 years after I graduated from high school, I got married. I met my husband at college, but we didn't get married until a couple years after we graduated. He is an airframe and power plant mechanic for AMR Combs and American Airlines. He's been there about 13, 14 years, something like that. Just after we were married, we went to Wichita, Kansas, and he worked for Cessna Corporation there. Did a lot of traveling out in the Southwest and the West. And then we moved back to Indiana and went to Plainfield, Indiana. Then about 5 years ago, we built a house just north of Belleville, Indiana, on 7.5 acres of land. In December of '82, we had a little baby girl. Her name is Kelly Elizabeth, and she keeps us pretty busy. And what we've done pretty much the last 20 years is doing a lot of traveling and spending a lot of time with the family and nieces and nephews and just seeing the United States.
Hi, I'm Karen Ferguson Begley, and
I'm Frank Glidden, and this is my son, Mac.
we decided to do it together because neither one of us wanted to do it. We really aren't married, and this really isn't our baby, but we decided to have fun and do it together. I'm married to a wonderful man and have been for about 12 years now. We have 2 children, 2 boys, an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old. And basically, all I've done the last 20 years, this is terrible, I've been teaching for about 15 at Greenwood Middle School in Greenwood, Indiana, and met my husband teaching before that at Speedway Junior High, so a lot of good memories about that.
Hi, I live in Greenwood also with this rugrat and my wife who's playing golf tonight, and she will forever be in my debt for leaving me with my child tonight. I've been working at Amex Coal Company for about 15, 16 years. I'm resident engineer of 2 coal mines in southern Indiana. I haven't been to jail. I have had a lot of fun over the last 20 years. I graduated from Purdue in engineering, and other than that, I live down at Valley Vista in Greenwood, play a lot of golf, and have 1 son. Hopefully, the only one. He was a surprise as it was a year ago.
Hi, I'm Dan Laskowski, and he says, what have I been doing for the last 20 years? Rose Holman, graduated, went to Hewlett-Packard, worked there 14.5 years, and my father 2 years ago made me an offer I couldn't refuse, and I'm now working for him over at Wood-Mizer. What was I doing? I was customer service. For most of the time at Hewlett-Packard, I carried a toolkit for a while. I worked on the software, and then I managed a crew of software support people for a number of years. And over at Wood-Mizer, I've been managing the customer service and working with their computer systems, something that has kept me quite busy because we're right now changing everything over there, and it's been real hectic.
Don Watson, and in the past 20 years, I've mostly worked in the insurance industry. Started in the insurance industry in 1977, and I now manage the state of Ohio for a company that runs property and casualty commercial business. I've been married for, it'll be 18 years, 2 days after the reunion. I have 2 kids, a boy, Gabe is 14, my daughter Monica is 9 years old.
My name is Steve Williams, and what have I been up to for 20 years? Probably just about the same as everybody else, not a whole lot. Still live in the area, build residential homes, play a little golf, drink a little beer, and not a whole lot more than that.
I had a really good time in the West and decided to live out there. And then I transferred to a school in Billings, Montana to play basketball and go to school. And I met my wife there, Bonnie, and played hoop for 2 years, and had a chance to play basketball in Europe for a little bit. I didn't go there because the finances weren't there, and I wanted to teach school. So I played basketball for 2 years, and then I started teaching and coaching basketball. And I taught history, and we moved to 2 or 3 different schools, and the opportunity came from my wife and I to go to western Montana, where I presently live. And basically, I've taught history, and as I mentioned before, and I was a school counselor where I work with kids who are troubled. And the community we live in is way up in the western part of the state, way up in the mountains. And so my wife has a horse, and we've got dogs and animals. And that's kind of our luxury, I guess, or our fun time. And I've got my wife and I have 2 children, Jamie, which is 14, and a young boy named Rusty, who's 12. And they're doing real well.
Worked for Conrail, and in the meantime, when I've been laid off for Conrail, I've worked some sales jobs. Now I'm back on Conrail as a regular engineer. So basically at this point in time, I'm married. I got a wife named Lissa. Got 2 little babies, one 2.5 years old and one 1.5 years old. And then I've got a son that graduated from high school this year at Ben Davis. I've got another son that's going to be a freshman next year. But other than that, doing real well and living here in the Speedway area. And still working for the railroad, and that's about all I got to say right now.
Well, I haven't matured a bit. In the last few years, I've owned and operated an insurance agency, and I've been raising my family here in Fishers. I got a daughter 5 and a son 3, and a wonderful wife.
I mean, in a nutshell, I went to school and got married and had kids, and I've worked, you know. But there's a lot more detail than that. I've been through a lot of changes. I got out of high school and went to Ball State for a year and was pretty ruckusy, you know. I mean, I kind of springboarded off of my high school experience and continued to go down from there, and in terms of partying and just getting crazy. And then I went through a change, really a change of life after my first year in college, and which was kind of a religious change. And I went to Europe then after that and studied in Europe for most of the next year. I ran the Coldwell Banker office here for about 6 or 7 years, which is a brokerage firm, from 1981 to 87, and then from 87 till now I've been with Duke. And so that's my career side. And then on the personal side, I got married in '76. So in fact, the weekend of our reunion is my 16th anniversary. So I will have been married 16 years the day of the day before the reunion. And I've been blessed with 2 kids. I've got a boy 11 and a boy 7, and good kids, and you know, so the family's been great.
Well, right after I got out of high school, worked construction for approximately 3 years, and spent the I remember getting my walking papers on Christmas Eve one year and decided that wasn't really my cup of tea, so I needed to start seeking the horizon for something else. Started dabbling around with different jobs, jumping from job to job, and finally, after about 4 or 5 years, ended up at a place called Speedy Incorporated. I don't know if you've seen their trucks. Family-wise, I've been married for 14 years now. I've got a son 10 and a daughter 7. My wife I met while Steve Williams and I, we were rooming over at 59th and Georgetown. It was one of the apartment complexes, ironically, that I took care of as far as wiring it when I was in construction. And I knew the rental agent there, and when him and I were looking for an apartment, I told the rental agent to go and set us up next to some single women, which she did so. There was 4 women next door, and I was working nights at the time, and that's where I met Carol, my wife.
First question he asked was, what have you been doing the last 20 years? I'd have to divide that into a couple of 10-year segments, and I will personally hold Dale Rohrig and Keith Wagner and Sandy Niederhauser and Diane Hageman and their respective spouses for the decadence of those first 10 years. I pretty much did the usual. That was college at Purdue, graduate work at IU, taught school for 7 years, met George in the middle of all that, and we got married. And at our 10-year reunion, I was pregnant with Jerry. You know, I just had a great time before and after kids, but you know, before kids it's a little different. Anyway, it was a great 10 years, and this last 10 years has been great too. And a couple of years after Jerry was born, George, who grew up in Florida, said, "I will not spend another winter in Indianapolis." And I guess you can't blame him, and we put our house on the market and we were down here 6 months later. And trust me, I would never go back. The only thing we're missing is John Mellencamp, but he passes through now and again.
Smoke, I worked for Donald Douglas for the last 13 years, and it really feels like it's been 20 years, exactly 20 year.
After graduation, I went to Indiana State University and took nursing, became a registered nurse. We moved to Florida. I lived down there for 10 years. And then after that, we moved to St. Louis, Missouri, and we've been there for 10 years. Nursing field in a hospital. We see since 1976, and it took about 5 years out of nursing. They have 2 children. I have 2 daughters, age 10 and another daughter 12. I have a dog, a cat, a gerbil, a hamster, and I bought a horse in January.
Sandy Young works for an oil company, and she does a real good job. An oil company? Yes, and she has oil on her shoes, as a matter of fact. Anyway,
those are nice.
Yeah, get that off of there. So anyway, she also plays the big band. She's a saxophone player.
Of course, I knew that.
She's the lead Barry sax. She is the Barry sax. Actually, she's the head of her section. She's the head of the Barry sax section in the band. And
the Barry sax section?
Yeah.
That's it. I have a letter carrier from the U.S. Postal Service.
And how long is your route? How many 100 miles every day?
Let's see, my dog sled.
Do you use a dog sled?
I use a
Jeep. A Jeep, 4-wheel drive, right?
Yeah.
How far do you have to go?
I go up in elevation.
How many homes do you deliver to in a day?
462.
462. So you're near the populated area.
Yeah, there's 2,000 people in Richmond.
Okay, well, I figured I don't even know if I'm aiming at you here. I figured you would have 3 or 4 homes to deliver to out there, sparsely populated as it is.
No, it's a big city. It's the size of Speedway, Joe.
Oh, okay, that's a big city. Well, we're glad you came to the reunion.
Since reunions like ours are made up of memories, we ask your classmates to share some of their memories of school with us.
Back in junior high, in art class with Glenn Miller, when the teacher asked for us to bring our baskets that we were weaving up to the front of the class. And the day came and Glenn carried his up, and all it was the base with a couple of strands sticking out. And the teacher made the remark to Glenn, she says, "Glenn, what are you going to do in life? What are you going to do in life? Stand on the street corner and sell pencils or what?" And Glenn just looked at her straight as could be, and he said, "Well, looks like I'm not going to weave baskets." I don't think he is. I'm not sure, but I don't think he's weaving baskets this day.
Oh, when we were in high school, Kathy Harris had a video camera. It was an 8mm back then. And we used to, the group that I used to hang around with, get together, and we used to make some crazy movies. And one afternoon in particular, we came to my house, and we did our own version of Romeo and Juliet. And it was pretty funny.
One I can never forget. One day I was in the hallway, and Miss Croft, Miss Metzger, and Miss Spencer were walking side by side down the hallway, and nobody could get between them.
I remember skipping out of school at lunchtime. Mark Hedge, Jerry Love, and I used to have a thing where we'd go from class to the cafeteria, and then we'd head out of the cafeteria, get in my car, and we'd go over to Kresge's over here at the Speedway Shopping Center. We'd get those big submarine sandwiches they used to sell. And we thought that was a big time. We'd get a Coke, get a submarine sandwich, then we'd head back, and we'd drive in a parking lot, park, run back in just as the cafeteria was letting out, and then we'd go on to class, and nobody knew any different. Well, Clyde Salee got wise to what we were doing because he'd see us leaving the school. So I remember, I mean, we did this for a period of months, you know. I remember one day we come back in, we were coming in off of Lyndhurst in that entrance, and here's Salee. He's standing off to the side, he waved us down, and so we got in big trouble for that. That ended our, our adventures at lunchtime.
It was kind of special to me for the simple reason I played freshman football. He gave me the same number he wore when he played for Butler University. He was a very good coach and inspiration to me. Made me play a lot better ball and helped me throughout the life in my adulthood now. And basically that's about what I remember about Mr. Crumley. He's a real nice man.
So we finally get to the reunion. The Speedway Class of 72 took full advantage of the weekend events to reminisce and have fun. On Friday night, we had a hospitality suite at the Adams Mark Hotel. Those who showed up got an early chance to see how many classmates they could recognize. Then on Saturday afternoon, Tom Smith, remember Tom, our old history teacher? He's now the assistant principal at Speedway High School, and he gave us a tour of good old Speedway High. Saturday night was the main event. The reunion was really well attended. We had approximately 85 classmates and 50 guests attending the Saturday night function. Finally, on Sunday afternoon at Meadowood Park, we had a family picnic where our kids got to meet those people they've heard so many stories about. Johnny Carson once said that sometime in their life, everyone in America will have a chance to guest host his show. Well, Don Strauss must be a frustrated talk show host because on Friday night, encouraged by liberal usage of alcoholic spirits, Don hosted the Donnie Carson Show with guests Rhonda McCormick, Tim Maloney, and Vinnie Compsa.
All right, it's Don Strauss here at the...
it's late night with David.
Thank you. This is Don Strauss. I'm interviewing Rhonda, Tim, and Vinnie, and we'll get started. From Speedway.
I remembered you. Oh, good.
We're going to start right off with Rhonda. Tell us about yourself.
Well, Don, what specifically would you like to know?
Time's up, Tim. How are you doing? Okay.
Is that relevant, Don?
And Vinnie. How are you? Yeah, okay.
I'm fine, thanks.
Fine. All right, we're gonna get into the marital status thing. Are you married?
Yes, I am. 13
Happily?
years. Yes, I am.
And how about you, Tim?
Yes.
You're married. How long have you been married? Exactly.
Oh, we're doing all right, and I've been married.
Time's up. And Vinnie, you've been married?
I was, I'm not.
And how long have you not been married?
12 years.
Good for you.
But anyway, I thought that was very nice of Mr. Wagner to take personal interest in all of his students as he did.
That was critical. Made my career.
It was
Who was your favorite teacher, Vinnie?
Stanley Traeger.
Why?
Because Stanley Traeger
Why?
He was interested in knowledge. He was interested in knowledge. He had a good sense of humor, and he had the whole Speedway High School BS in perspective, and I just really enjoyed learning from him.
Towards the end of the evening, Don Watson gathered us for what would become a familiar ritual over the weekend, the group picture. On Saturday afternoon, Tom Smith took us for a tour of the high school. Here we are going through the alumni orientation outside the principal's office. For some of us, seeing the principal's office again was an unsettling experience. Remember room 225, where we took our SATs and had study halls? It's now the wrestling room, although the padded walls might have been helpful when we were there. The main event was at the Adams Mark Hotel in the Fountain Square room. Let's go in and see what's going on. Don Watson was at work again. We lined up for the group picture. See how many people you can recognize. When he filled out the 20-year summary, Mark Sullivan quoted the Grateful Dead, saying, "What a long, strange trip it's been." Does this look like a deadhead to you? Jerry Harbin, Don Watson, Dave Waltz, Dale Rohrig, and Mark Sullivan all volunteered to be part of a tribute to the village people. They did a really good job in their roles of members of the group, maybe too good a job. Several people remarked that they were surprised that Jerry Harbin knew all the words to YMCA. The most changed classmate award is not necessarily one that is desired. However, Bob Hawkins, Don Strauss, and Clayton Foxworthy were selected for their mature appearances. You know, they had aged like fine wine. Clayton Foxworthy won the prize for his distinguished gray hair. Becky Toms hasn't cut her hair since high school, so it came as no surprise to anyone that she won the award for the longest hair. How many of us in high school would have picked Burrow Ridgway as having 5 children? Well, he does, and this feat earned him the Most Children Award. Sandy Badger contends that there are a lot of good things about living in Alaska. One of them is that it won her the Classmate Who Traveled the Greatest Distance to Attend the Reunion award. This bunch was all considered for the least changed classmate award. By popular demand, Phyllis Draper was crowned the classmate who looked the most like she did at 18 years old. On Sunday, we had a family picnic at Meadowood Park, including such fun activities as a sack race and water balloon toss. Here, Larry Hoffmuckel, Don Watson, Vicki Price, and others wonder what could possess them to hop across the field in a burlap sack. Becky Toms shows us that you're only as young as you feel as she plays balloon toss with her son. Joanne Brooks, who likes to keep physically fit by competing in triathlons, competes in a much more mild form of exercise, the balloon toss. Later, Joanne joins Lynn Elbrick, Patty Smith, and Don Watson's wife Jerry as they visit during the picnic. Jim Price, who organized the games, made the mistake of admitting that he really didn't have any prizes. And, well, you can see the results. As the sun sets on Meadowood Park and our reunion weekend comes to an end, Don Watson gathers us one more time for the group shot, this time with our children. As a class, we seem to have a real good time visiting with old friends. The Speedway High School's class of 1972's 20th reunion gave us a lot of moments
Teachers Lounge and taking some video of some of the teachers who were here in the early 70s, so please respond and take just a minute or so.
You know, working on this video made me feel like I was back in school again, like these guys. It was a lot of fun. We had fun going back to school, talking to the teachers. The good thing about it was that I didn't have to take any tests. But we really hope you enjoyed our efforts. There have been a lot of people put work into this, and we especially appreciate those who were brave enough to sit for interviews, the classmates and the teachers, and especially Kathy Harris and Gail Bell, who provided a lot of the old pictures that you saw in the video. I'd like to give a special thanks to Mark Van Fossen. Mark works with Jerry Harbin at Channel 6 and has volunteered his efforts to put the production of this video together. He spent countless hours doing this, and we really appreciate his efforts. Anyway, we hope that you enjoy the video, and as we close, we're going to listen to a song that was a #1 song from 1972, Bye Bye Miss American Pie by Don McLean. Hope you enjoy.
You shouldn't talk about food.
You want chicken and chicken?
I need
No, we're having beef, 1 entree's beef, 1 entree's chicken.
Yes, 1 beef, 1 chicken, and we'll talk.
Steve was surprises. Steve.
Duplicates of what we had in 72, or 82, pictures of the
high school
members, yes, right.
There'll be anything there.
Sandwiches with potato chips.
Backing, then we'll slide that into the holder that's got the pin on it.
Okay.
And that'll all be provided, so I'll, if they're, yeah, that's
So you're going to have the spouses also have a pin?
Sure, the ones I've got, yeah.
Okay. And then Joe's original.
I'll have somebody do this work. They do it all. They have these outings.
Here we are, thinking you're so great.
Yeah, let's change the school colors just for our reunion.
Did you save the ribbons?
No red and white.
Yeah.
Not a bad idea.
Can we think about spending money yet?
I can't think of any other decorations we'll need if we have a center. We were talking about doing a composite.
How about we'll be within our budget?
But you'll have 3 cases of beer.
So you won't
Now you're
care.
talking.
That's right.
Yeah, okay, well, why don't you two take a look at the room we're going to be in?
Okay.
See if we may not need to.
Okay.
If you do,
When are you going to do that?
can I get a check from Jerry?